Hi guys, in the spotlight today is a case which features as part of the new spec range from within the Corsair Carbide series. Back in March you will have seen the spec range announced. Unfortunately the review embargo was kind of postponed because of stock issues, but we're happy to say that this is now lifted this week. We've published a full review over on Vortez.net, and today we're going to be giving you in the video form just to give you a bit more detail. SPEC-01 is a mid-tower computer case which aims to satisfy the needs of those system builders which are on an extremely tight budget. So as you may have guessed, this case is positioned at the lower end of the market, but surprisingly avoids compromising on quality and features. So SPEC-01 is available to buy now. In the UK it's around £34, and then over in the States it's $54 US. So if you're struggling to perhaps drop in a mid to high end case within your upgrade parts, this could well be a viable option for you. So we're now going to commence our video review of this. If you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them in the box below, and I'll endeavour to answer as many of those as possible. Okay, we'll begin then at the front of the case. Here you can see we've got this plastic fascia which is fitted onto the front. We've got the ventilation strips which are vertically aligned. That gives you a bit of ventilation for the fan which is installed inside there. Let's take this off so that you can see what's inside. There we've got a 120mm LED cooling fan. So we've got placements there for two 120s or two 140s, so it gives you a bit of flexibility. On the inside of that cover we've got a dust filter that is actually attached to the fascia, so you can't take it out from the inside or easily remove it. You basically just got to take the fascia off if you need to clean it. And if you just put that back on, there we've got two 5 1/4 bay covers. Those are plastic, and that's for your optical drives. And at the top of this panel we have the front panel connectivity, and this consists of the following. We've got a power button, USB 2 port, we've got the headphone and the microphone jacks, and the activity LED for the hard drive there in the centre. And then we've got a USB 3 port, that's a single port there. We've got that via the internal motherboard header, and then we've got the reset button. At the top we have this steel panel. You can see there we've got this perforated mesh area, and that can take two 120mm cooling fans. So those are optional. You can see that we haven't got any included, but it does mean that you can expand the cooling within the case. Both our side panels on SPEC-01 are steel. You can see here on the alternate side we have this convex design, and that just allows you a little bit of extra space behind that motherboard tray, as it is pretty tight, and so that's going to really help your cable management. So that's a nice feature to have. Just ignore the dent there, it doesn't come as standard, that was my own fault. And over on the prominent side we've again got this convex design just to give you a little bit of extra space for the CPU cooler. But in the centre here we've got the Perspex window. That just gives you a bit of a preview inside the case. Now with SPEC-01 being a mid-tower, we can house ATX, micro ATX and mini ATX. So taking the biggest form factor, we've got our ATX test system installed inside the case here, and this just gives you a bit of an idea as to what sort of space there is and the clearance options. With the externals now covered, we're going to go inside the case and have a good look at all the features. As you can see at the very bottom of the case there, we've got the location for mounting the power supply unit, and in this area we've got approximately 270mm of clearance, or 10.5 inches. And we're really pleased to report that underneath that power supply we've got some rubber pads to give that nice soft cushion and for anti-vibration. Underneath that power supply there is a detachable filter, but you can see there is very little clearance underneath the case. It's very tight, so extracting that is sometimes quite difficult, and also getting it back in once you've removed it, it can be tricky, so you may need to just tilt the case on its side to assist you with that. Taking that out, you can see the dust filter is very small, but you can take that out and give it a good clean. Moving up, we have 7 steel PCIe covers, and each of these covers has the ventilation cutouts, and I'm really pleased to say that these aren't disposable like many cases that we see in this price range. And you'll see that there are standard screws there, so you're going to need to get your screwdriver out in order to remove those, and access is from the outside. Now at the top and rear of the case, we do not have any cooling fans included, with this being an entry-level product, but there are placements there for attaching a 120mm at the rear and then two 120s at the very top. So there's plenty of options there if you're wanting to add in extra cooling. SPEC-01 has two 5¼ bays, and each of these bays has this tool-free mechanism which you've seen incorporated on many Corsair cases in the past. It's a very common occurrence that we've seen this, and to get your drive in, it's very, very simple. All you need to do is pull the latch out. This withdraws the pins, you slide your drive in, and then you literally just push the latch across and that fixes it into place. In terms of the hard drive storage, we have a single cage here which can take up to 4 drives. Let's take this out for you. There you can see we've got a 3.5 inch, and that sits within a tray. I'll just take one out to show you. So for a 3.5 inch drive, what you would do is drop your drive in, the pins go into the mounting holes, and that's pretty much it. You don't need a screwdriver. But for a 2.5 inch, you obviously need to drop your drive into the tray, but you will need to use a screwdriver to fix 4 screws into the underside. So it's a very common thing again to see on various cases, especially the Corsair cases, the tool-free mechanisms. And at the front there, we've obviously got the 120mm LED fan, and we can mount the two 120s or two 140s. Now moving on to the different clearance options inside this case, we're going to start with the CPU cooler. Here you can see it is very, very close to touching that side panel if it was to be placed on top. Now Corsair actually states here that we can get around 150mm of maximum height on the CPU cooler. We've actually got 158mm from a Noctua NH-U12P, so it's nice to see that we have a little bit more extra space there in order to fit your coolers. So the bigger flagships like your Noctua NH-D14, it's going to struggle because that is 160mm, and that little bit extra is unfortunately going to touch that side panel. Graphics card compatibility and clearance is very good inside SPEC-01. As you can see, we're using the top slot for a single card configuration, and there's no problem there extending that card beyond the hard drive cage. There is no interference from that. So if you've got a card which is 12 inches, this one here is 10.5 inches, no problem. Anything on the market will fit if you are using a single card. But if you're going to go for a dual card like for SLI or Crossfire, then you're going to need obviously another slot down here, and there will be a bit of an obstruction there with the hard drive cage. Now this card in particular is a great indicator of exactly how much clearance you need. As you can see there, we have 10.5 inches or 270mm before we touch that cage. So this card would actually fit just sort of perfectly right up against that cage. So if you're going to go for a dual card configuration, you will have a slight limitation there. Clearance between the back of the motherboard tray and the side panel is a prerequisite for good cable management. And in this region, there is very little space, unfortunately. Measuring that area there, we've got sort of less than 1 centimetre. But it's important also to remember that we've got that convex side panel, which does give you an extra centimetre. But even so, the cable management inside here, it can be tricky. So you need extra patience and thoughtfulness. When we look at the water cooling support inside SPEC-01, there are certainly some limitations here. But you need to remember that this case really isn't geared towards such products, and really when you go down that particular route with the water cooling, spending hundreds of dollars and pounds, you generally pick a case which is mid to high end and has dedicated support. But at the rear of the case, we can obviously house a 120mm radiator, and this covers all of the Hydro series 120mm radiators. But at the top, you can clearly see there is no space at all for mounting a radiator plus the required fans, and so water cooling support at the top is going to be out of the question. At the front, we've removed the hard drive cage, and we've obviously got the support there for the two 120 or the two 140mm cooling fans. So that paves the way for the bigger radiators. We've got one of those just here. This is the Corsair Hydro Series H100i. I'm just going to demonstrate for you that this does actually fit at the top. with a little bit of persuasion. There we go. So we've got the space there, and we've also got the mounting hole so you can attach that, but obviously that is to the detriment of your hard drive storage. So there is a bit of a compromise there, but that does demonstrate that you can fit such a device at the front. Right guys, well, for our last clip, as we always do, I'm going to power the system up and take my microphone off, get it as close to that single 120mm cooling fan at the very front, just to give you a bit of an idea as to what to expect when it's spinning. And it also gives you a bit of an idea of what it looks like when it's powered up, because it obviously is an LED cooling fan. So I will power the system up. There we go. So that is the new SPEC-01. Now, Corsair have been producing cases for a long time now, and we're all fairly familiar with the premium cases that they offer and the price tag to show it. So this shift in focus to the lower end with this case is a very interesting one. No, not everyone has the cash to splash out on a new case, which costs £100, $150. So there's definitely a market for SPEC-01. Now, the styling isn't going to be to everyone's taste, I certainly admit that, but this case serves a purpose. It's basic, but on the flip side, it delivers on the features and also the quality. Now, inside, we do have some cutbacks. You've got to sort of appreciate that there are going to be some cutbacks with the price of it. The lack of cable management grommets, the inclusion of just one cooling fan at the front. But again, this is probably not going to affect most system builders. It's not going to be a concern. The things which are included, such as the tool-free mechanisms inside for installing kit, the decent clearance for the CPU cooler, the graphics card, is sure to satisfy the needs of most users. So, you know, when you all things considered, there's actually very little you can criticise this case for. It's excellent value for money, and if you guys want to see the award which we gave this case and perhaps look at the thermal performance, please head over to the link in the description, as there's all that detail over there. And so from me guys, thanks for watching, thanks for taking the time out to take a look at this video. If you did enjoy it, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back very soon for another one.